going on, boys? Mick here, back with another video. This is going to be the second installment of the Flop or Not series. While I just did one of these videos already, I kind of wanted to get another one out there to kind of ferment this new series, kind of get it going, get the ball rolling, so to speak. As you can tell by the title of the video, we're going to be covering Resident Evil 9 or Resident Evil Requiem, the new installment of the RE series. Now, before anyone gets their pitchforks or start lighting fires, I understand that we're covering this via the Flop or Not series, and while the title might be a little clickbaity depending on who you are or who you ask, nobody in their right minds is going to call RE9 a possible flop, or anybody thinks that RE9 is going to suck. Like, that may be a possibility, you know, the 1% chance, you never know, it's happened before with games. In all seriousness, this game is definitely not going to flop in anyone's eyes. Their past record, their current development information, and obviously the gameplay just tells us it's going to be good. The spirit of keeping the series going and sticking to our previous methods, as you all know, on the background, this is the Flop or Not chart. 1 being the least likely to flop and 10 being the most likely / will flop. So I will use this chart in scoring my games from here on out, and we're going to look at Resident Evil 9 and obviously place it on the chart as we would any other game. Keeping this intro nice and short then, I want to say thank you to everybody who's interacted with and liked my videos in the past, including the very first episode of this series that we released a couple days ago. If you do find yourself coming across this video and have some time to spare, please leave your thoughts below in the comments. I love hearing from everybody. In this video then, we're going to be looking at some trailers that they released, do a little bit of gameplay breakdown, and then of course get into some leaks that were released online.
Don't do anything stupid.
Me? Never.
Going into this video then, guys, I gotta admit that the Resident Evil series is by far one of my most favourite series in all of gaming. I love the resource management, the survival horror aspect. I love doing all the puzzles and finding things and exploring different parts of the map that you can miss on some playthroughs. There's been a few games that I've even went out of my way to get all the trophies on. I think the 2 and 3 remake, including Village, I managed to 100% them all. I didn't manage to get 7 done because fuck that, why would you even bother? Seriously, the story, the characters, the gameplay, the visuals, everything that Resident Evil has put into their games, just from start to finish, has been bangers. Obviously, some people might mention 6, but in my personal opinion, that game was good. You know, Resident Evil do not miss, in my personal opinion. It's a fantastic franchise. For me, Resident Evil Village is my favourite one out of the whole series. I know that might be some sort of a weird opinion to some people, but let me know what your favourite one is down below. Resident Evil 9 then, titled Resident Evil Requiem, is the 9th mainline entry in Capcom's survival horror series. Our first look at RE9 then was at the Summer Games Fest with a cinematic trailer, and the release date was announced as February 27, 2026, so just around the corner. Development for this title then was a direct response to RE7 and 8's success, especially Biohazard. Resident Evil 7 blowing everyone's minds and exceeding expectations and really fermenting the RE series back to where it was, you know, putting it right back on top of that shelf. Resident Evil 7 selling around 15 million copies alone, so everybody did receive that well. And of course they're going to keep that template and keep that motion going forward. Initially, this development was actually pitched as a big open world multiplayer game with Leon and Jill on a Singapore inspired island. This is information from online. It sounds a bit crazy, but you never know with these games. Regardless of the multiplayer thing though, if you do think about a Resident Evil open world game that this was initially, you know, planned as, it just doesn't work. It does sound good sometimes when you say it, but you do realise deep down that it would never work in Resident Evil. Capcom going with the decision then to just maintain that single player survival horror experience was the best call they could make. I don't think a Western development company could have made that call. I think they just would have made the mistake and stuck with it. I mean, we have seen multiplayer versions of Resident Evil before, you know, we have had that co-op aspect in Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 6, which I personally loved. I mean, running through Resident Evil 5 with my brother back in the day, you know, that was some good gaming. I loved RE5 as a co-op game. At the start of the development cycle though, with that open world multiplayer initial idea, I'm glad they moved away from that. I don't see that doing too well. I mean, Resident Evil's main selling point is the survival horror single player experience. Any Western company would have done the open world thing and then failed, and then inevitably would have blamed the customers for having a problem with it. I mean, we can look at different things throughout the video and different aspects and compare it to Western development companies, but this whole decision being changed at the start of the development cycle, this is something that a Western company would just fail at immediately. I mean, we've seen it time and time again, but the point I'm trying to make here is that Japanese developers really are in their own bracket when it comes to the quality of video games. Leading the RE9 project then is director Koshi Nakanishi. He's going to be running the whole show here. Definitely somebody who's experienced in their field, and we know we're going to get a good title from this guy and obviously from the rest of his team. This game then has also been titled as Capcom's most ambitious Resident Evil game, with the biggest budget, 9 years almost in development, the longest ever development Resident Evil game so far. They're aiming for about the same game time as RE4's remake, so looking at 15 to 20 hours, depending on how you play it. You know, it might take people sometimes longer if they're looking at everything, reading everything. So when people say 15 to 20 hours, that's probably just like solid game time with the missions and all sorts of things included. The story then for Resident Evil 9 is going to follow two main protagonists that we know of now and recently revealed. The first being Grace Ashcroft, that we knew about before in the initial reveal. She is going to be the daughter of Alyssa Ashcroft. She was from RE Outbreak, if anyone played that title. Grace is going to be an FBI analyst then. She's going to be this introverted bookworm, kind of nerdy character who's not really an action hero. You know, she's not going to be in amongst it, you know, have the experience of any of the characters we've seen in the past. You know, it's going to be a very survival horror experience with Grace. You know, she's going to be moving scarily through the world. Everything's going to be new to her. She's going to be learning how to survive. It's going to be a great experience. Grace's campaign, or Grace's side of the story, is going to be very immersive. You know, as the player, this whole new world and these scary things is as much experience as we have playing it. It is going to be kind of realistic to how most of us would end up in that world. You know, we'd be kind of moving around scared of everything, you know, trying to keep quiet, things like that. So it's going to be a very reserved and scared playthrough when it comes to Grace, and I'm sure like other characters in the past, she is going to have that arc. As you get more weapons, as you get stronger, you get more experienced. If I had to guess, when you get to the end of her story, like we've seen with Ethan Winters, she's just going to be this killing machine, just absolutely annihilating everything. Second playable character then is returning protagonist Leon Kennedy, who we've more recently seen in the Resident Evil 4 remake. He's going to be this action hero, gung-ho, killing everything. You know, he's got plenty of experience with Raccoon City, plenty of experience with all the monsters and enemies. You know, he's been there and done that, and he has all the experience, and we're going to see all that experience on show. You know, seeing a lot of people talking about Leon's age when it comes to this game, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be showing us some spinning back kicks in no time, so it's good to see him return, and it will be good to have a change of pace between the two characters. The story is going to set 30 years after the Raccoon City outbreak, I believe. This is going to be back to where Leon started his story when he was part of Raccoon PD. This is going to be a great return and set, and I mean, it's going to be really cool to see how it looks now after everything that's happened. Are we going to see some old locations, old items? Are we going to read some lore about the outbreak, you know, that originally happened? For those who haven't played the RE2 remake or haven't done anything there, it's going to be a really good area to see. I mean, I'm sure we'll be able to go right back to Raccoon PD like we did in RE2 and RE3 remakes. All in all, I think we're going to see Leon's gameplay be about half of the time and Grace's be half of the time as well. I mean, you know, we'll just have to see when the game comes out, but it does look like we're going to have a split campaign, a split, you know, story here, like we kind of did with Resident Evil 2. It really will be good to see what these characters get up to and their different personalities, and then hopefully see them clash and come together and work together and see how they interact with each other. So I'm looking forward to this story as a whole. In Resident Evil fashion then, Grace is going to be followed, as we can see in the gameplay, by an unkillable, I'd assume unkillable enemy that's going to roam around while she tries to find things, do puzzles, and kind of move on to the next area. This isn't something new. We've seen this before in titles like Mr. X and Resident Evil 2. We've seen it with Jack Baker. You know, these are going to be things that are getting in your way. You're going to have to be constantly aware of them, constantly trying to maneuver around them, and just being as quiet as possible. This title is going to feature first and third person modes, just like we've seen in Resident Evil Village, and then I think they did it at the end of RE7. They brought it out as some sort of additional content, I do believe. But in RE8, I think you had to change your POV in the menu. This seems to be an in-game switch, so you can play through the game in first person or third person. So there is that option for a classic feel in that third person mode, but for me, I'm definitely going to opt in for the first person mode. I like that immersion, I like the horror aspect of it. I really do prefer playing in first person when it comes to these titles. Now, as you can see, this thing that's chasing Grace around is absolutely horrifying. I mean, the eyes, the teeth, everything, it's just really, really good looking. The visuals look fantastic for this game. A lot of people online have theorized that this might be her mother, Alyssa Ashcroft. There has been no confirmations about that yet, just some talks, but as you can see, this thing looks absolutely horrifying. I don't know if I can play this in the dark. We might get into a full gameplay review and breakdown in another video, but we'll just look at some things here as we're going along. Obviously you can see Grace is moving around this area. It looks like it might be a hospital or some sort of asylum, some sort of medical building anyway, using a lighter as her only light source. As she moves around each area, the shadows start to break away as that lighter kind of gives her a small little glimmer of hope amongst all this darkness. As you can see, in Resident Evil fashion, there are going to be items scattered across the map. This really does make it, you know, make it pay to look around and explore everything you can in terms of resource management. She's going to find a medical injector there, and in case you were worried, the herbs are making an appearance again, as you can see in the background. From what little gameplay we have received, I am just going to review this first person stuff here, but as you can see, it is a lot of looking around, finding what you can to help progress to that next area, and there's a lot of map interactions. There's a lot of like different things you can pick up and look at. Obviously there's hiding places too, as we can see. Like I said before, having to do everything and look for these items to help you progress while this monster is just constantly looking for you, constantly listening to any noise you make, it just completely adds to the tension. I really do love this part of the game. I say I love this part of the game, but when you're doing it, it's absolutely terrifying, at least for me anyway. So I'm really glad to see that there's different hiding places, and you're definitely going to have to react to this monster throughout. Another returning aspect of gameplay is something that I recently spoke about in my previous video. This is inspecting and interacting with items you find. So you'll find a toolbox like you can see in the background, and then you need to open it up and kind of, you know, take it to that next stage. There's a lot of interactions with every object you find, and I really do love that. It really brings the world to life and really makes you feel like you're taking each and every step that the character's taking. The visuals look amazing. It looks horrifying. I mean, I don't know how much of the map we're seeing or how much more there is to see, but for Capcom and Resident Evil, you can best count on a lot of this being a lot better, you know, behind the scenes. There's going to be so much more for us to see, and from what we can see so far, it looks absolutely horrifying. Resident Evil do their best in bringing different parts of visuals to life, you know, the glossy look on surfaces, how dark shadows look, light sources, like everything they use, especially within this engine, it just looks fantastic. We've seen it in 7, we've seen it in 8. I mean, 7 had to be one of the most immersive and realistic looking horror games at the time when it came out. Like I said at the start of the video, Capcom and Japanese developers really do take visuals to another level. As promised, we're going to take a quick peek at some leaks then to finish off the video. What I will say before getting into these is they are unconfirmed. As we know with all leaks, take them with a grain of salt, and coming up close to release, I wouldn't back them too much, because even if they're not true, you know, we're going to find out the truth very shortly. So like I said, just take these with a grain of salt. So the 4chan link does say here over on Reddit, Grace Ashcroft is the main protagonist of the game. Not much we know. Alyssa Ashcroft from RE Outbreak is the stalking creature shown in the demo. This was theorized by fans in the past, and we have seen this thrown about in different social media sites and whatnot. After her death in the prologue, her body is taken by Victor Yurchenko, one of the villains in the game. Victor Y has 2 assistants, a girl named Ellen and his henchman named Pollack. Leon Kennedy then will participate in the game in 2 distinct phases. First in the search for the alleged villain Victor, investigated by the US government for his connection to Operation Elpis. Operation Elpis, which seeks secret groups linked to the past of Umbrella and Raccoon City. The second part of Leon's participation will be later in the plot, in the rescue of Grace Ashcroft. This is actually something I theorized myself. I thought this would be his sole purpose, because we know what Leon Kennedy's like when it comes to rescuing blonde women, so this is something I thought might be true, so we'll have to see when the game comes out, but this sounds about right. Yoko Suzuki and Claire Redfield apparently have minor roles in this story. During the game, Jill Valentine and Sherry Birkin are mentioned as important survivors of the Raccoon City incident. The game has about 6 main bosses, 3 of which are faced by Leon and the other 3 by Grace. Some creatures such as Lickers, G-Types and Drain Dymos return with the more deteriorated appearance and minor mutations. The virus in the game is called Elanthropus, derived from Victor Yurchenko's research on mold and the progenitor virus. The virus maintains the host's consciousness in some infected individuals, causing exaggerated transformation in others. The game is about 18 hours of campaign play and will also feature an extra mode similar to Mercenaries mode. The Connections will play a surprise role in the game, helping Leon to find Grace and stop a large infection in Rhodes Hill. As you can see, some interesting stuff in regards to those leaks, and you know, they're not too far-fetched when it comes to Resident Evil Story and what we've seen so far. That being said, it is important to note that these are leaks, so they're not confirmed by anybody. You know, these could be false, these could be true, who knows, but we only have to wait till February 27th to find out. So far, what we've looked at, this game is definitely going to rank 1 on my flop scale. I think we all seen that coming, but this is 100% going to be a banger. I have no doubt that this game will be absolutely fantastic. The only thing I have to wonder about this game is, will it be better than Village in my eyes? And again, that's my own personal opinion on my favourite title, but can it beat Village? We'll just have to wait and see. Resident Evil 9 is shaping up to probably be one of the best releases of the year, and it's only coming out in February. That's how confident I am that this game is going to slap. In terms of the flop or not series then, nobody's seen this being a potential flop, including myself. I did want to get another episode out there and get the ball rolling, but I also wanted an opportunity to talk about the upcoming title, Resident Evil 9. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, I thank you very much. If you are going to leave a comment, I'd be interested in hearing what your favourite Resident Evil title is. For me, like I said earlier, it's got to be Village. I mean, the story, the graphics, the bosses, everything about it. I don't know, I just really liked Village. So be sure to let me know what your favourite title is down below. But other than that, guys, again, thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.